Alright, show me your progress with the peerless immortal technique, Elder Sun said to Yuan. Yuan nodded and showed off his progress, which had reached the 3rd level. To think he'd enter the 3rd level of the technique after just a year of training, as I thought, his talents when it comes to comprehension are monstrous. Elder Sun thought to herself. Okay, now show me your other. Elder Sun's words abruptly cut off, her voice trailing into silence. Her expression suddenly changed, the light curiosity in her eyes vanishing as a serious and worried look took its place. A sudden, almost palpable tension filled the air. Elder Sun's brows furrowed, and her gaze sharpened, as if she had sensed something deeply unsettling. It was not just concern, it was the kind of reaction that only came when something was terribly wrong. Noticing this, Yuan asked her, "What's the matter, Elder Sun?" "Sorry, but let's end our training here. Something else came up." Without explaining further, Elder Sun left the scene in a hurry, leaving Yuan to ponder what caused her to make such an expression. Don't tell me, is it because of that? He wondered, as he had an idea what made Elder Sun leave. After leaving the Immortal Sun Peak, Yuan wandered the inner court to see if any of the disciples were gossiping, and they did not disappoint. Did you hear? All 9 immortal clans gathered for a meeting for the first time in decades. If the 9 immortal clans suddenly became active, something big will surely happen soon. Hearing this information, Yuan realized the 9 immortal clans were planning on sealing the desolate continent with the immortal ensnaring vault. This meant that Elder Sun's sudden departure was most likely because the life-saving treasure she had secretly given Tianyang had been activated, signaling that he was in danger. At this rate, the opening of Han Zexian's tomb will happen in about a year. A few days later, Elder Sun returned. Sorry for suddenly leaving you like that, she apologized to him. There's no need to apologize. That said, I'm curious. Did something happen? Yuan knew it was unlikely Elder Sun would tell him about the situation, but he still asked. To his surprise, Elder Sun said with a deep sigh, I gave Tianyang a life-saving treasure before he left the sect, and I sensed its activation. I don't know what he's gotten himself into this time, but he's likely in a life-or-death situation. That doesn't sound good. Are you going to leave the sect to save him? Elder Sun shook her head. Unfortunately, I don't know where he is right now. I am only able to sense the activation of the treasure, not where it was activated from. Yuan fell silent for a moment before speaking. Have you heard of a place called the Desolate Continent? The Desolate Continent? Of course, it's a lawless place. Why did you bring it up? Well, to be honest, I heard a few of the disciples talking about Tianyang visiting that place. What? Is that true? Elder Sun's eyes widened with disbelief. Yuan calmly nodded. That dumb, stupid idiot. Elder Sun stomped the ground angrily, her face full of frustration. Of all places, why'd he go there? Now that you know where he is, are you going to help him? Yuan then asked. Even if I know where he is, I need to ask the sect leader for permission first. If you're going to speak with the sect leader, can you bring me with you? I'd like to speak with him, too. What? The sect leader isn't someone you can meet just because you want to. I know, but it won't hurt to ask. After all, I've already spoken to him once before. Okay, I'll ask him. I will let you know when he responds. Yuan nodded. A week later, Elder Sun revealed the sect leader's response to Yuan. The sect leader has agreed to speak with you, but he said it'd cost you 1 million points, whatever that means. 1 million points just to speak with him. That's robbery in broad daylight. Yuan cried inwardly after hearing this. Okay, he nodded. Then I'll bring you to speak with him in 3 days. 3 days later, Elder Sun and Yuan made their way to the sect leader's quarters. Wait here while I speak with the sect leader first, Elder Sun said to Yuan before entering the building. Her conversation with the sect leader lasted only for a few minutes. Did you get the sect leader's permission to leave the sect? Yuan asked her. Yes. It's your turn now. I'll wait for you. I'll be back. A few moments later, Yuan entered the sect leader's room. It's you again. The sect leader frowned upon seeing Yuan's face. Of course, it wasn't because he disliked Yuan. It was just a natural reaction for the sect leader. What do you want? 1 million points will only grant you 10 minutes with me. I have a few questions, Yuan quickly responded. In that case, it'll cost you an additional 100,000 points for every question. Yuan was left speechless after hearing this, but as much as he wanted to complain, he had no qualifications to do so, as this was not his world or trial. After paying 1 million points, I have 300,000 points left, 3 questions, huh? Better make them count, he sighed inwardly. After a moment of silence, Yuan spoke, for my first question, I want to know how I can leave the sect. I want to visit the desolate continent with Elder Sun. The sect leader smiled and said, instead of asking if you can leave, you asked for the method, huh? If you wish to leave the immortal monastery and start venturing outside, you must pay a one-time fee of 10 million points. Yuan's eyes widened at the astronomical amount. 10 million points just to leave. He was in disbelief. I know you can create whatever rules you want, but isn't 10 million points asking for too much? One can get several powerful treasures with that many points. Yuan tried to convince the sect leader to be reasonable. However, the sect leader remained firm on his price and said, 10 million points. I won't accept a single point less. Yuan then said, how about this? I am willing to pay 10 million points, but can I pay you later? I want to follow Elder Sun to the desolate continent, but I need at least half a year to collect that many points. The sect leader did not immediately respond. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke, since I know you're more than capable of collecting that many points, I'm willing to delay your payment for 1 year. However, for every year you fail to pay me, I will add another 10 million points to your debt. If you fail to pay me back within 4 years, I will disqualify you from the trial. What do you think? Yuan immediately nodded, I accept. Very well. Any more questions? Yuan then asked his second question, how do we complete the trial? What is our actual goal? Because right now, it isn't clear what we're actually supposed to do here. In response, the sect leader raised 3 fingers and said, in order to complete the trial, you must achieve 3 things. 1. Accumulate 100 million points. The points you have already spent still count. 2. Become a core disciple. Last but not least, fully master the peerless immortal technique. The first one to achieve these 3 goals will inherit my legacy. Simple enough, right? Yuan could only sigh inwardly at the sheer audacity of these goals. Though they appeared simple and straightforward on the surface, they were anything but. Each would demand an immense amount of time and effort, especially the last one, which might require one's lifetime to accomplish. In order to acquire 100 million points, one would need to spend at least 50 months inside the center region of the hunting grounds while hunting at Yuan's pace, as he would acquire about 2 million points a month if he spent all of his time hunting magical beasts. Becoming a core disciple was no simple feat either. It required not only the accumulation of 1,000 contribution points but also reaching the esteemed realm of spirit enlightenment, a milestone that, for those without the heaven-refining physique, would take decades of relentless cultivation to achieve. Yet, even these arduous requirements paled in comparison to the final trial, which was simply outrageous. In all of history, only a single individual had ever perfected the peerless immortal technique, the founder of the immortal monastery himself. Compared to such an impossible feat, the other requirements were mere child's play, like pebbles before a towering mountain. Do you really expect one of us to perfect the peerless immortal technique? Yuan said. If you didn't want anyone to inherit your legacy, you could have just said so. Instead, you're making us chase after a near impossible goal without even telling us about it. If I hadn't spent 100,000 points to ask a question, who knows how long it would have taken us to realize the goal. Instead of taking offense at Yuan's words, the sect leader's lips curled into a wide grin, his gaze unwavering as he spoke with absolute conviction. So what if it takes a long time? Even if it requires millions of years to complete, I will not lower the goals. This is the bare minimum I expect from the one who dares to inherit my legacy. If you lack the patience, then leave, no one is forcing you to partake in this trial. He paused for a moment before adding, besides, time flows much slower in this world. No matter how long you spend here, the outside world will barely notice your absence. How long has passed in the real world? Yuan then asked. I consider that a question, so it'll cost you 100,000 points if you want an answer, the sect leader warned him. I still want to know, Yuan answered without hesitation. The sect leader then responded, although you've spent a few years in this world, only 4 months have passed in your world. Only 4 months. Yuan was quite surprised to learn this information. Alright, your 10 minutes is up. If you want to continue our conversation, come back with another 1,000,000 points, after you return your debt. Before Yuan could even respond, the sect leader waved his sleeves, teleporting Yuan outside. Oh, when did you come out? Yuan's sudden appearance startled Elder Sun a little. Just now. I see. What did you talk to the sect leader about, if you don't mind me asking? I don't mind. I basically asked him to let me leave the sect to follow you. What? Why would you want to follow me? I'm not leaving the sect to play. Elder Sun was baffled to hear that Yuan wanted to follow her to the desolate continent. I am well aware. However, I have always been interested in the desolate continent, and I saw this as a chance to fulfill my dream of going there. Elder Sun rubbed her eyes and sighed. No, I cannot let you follow me to such a dangerous place. You may be a genius, but you're still only a spirit grandmaster, not to mention your lack of experience in the outside world. It may be dangerous, but I am not worried at all because I know you will protect me, Elder Sun, Yuan said with a beaming smile, leaving her speechless. Just how thick is your skin? Do you even know what the meaning of shame is? Yuan shrugged and said, regardless, I already received the sect leader's permission. If you won't bring me with you, I'll just have to go alone. Why you stubborn brat? Why can't you just listen to me, your master, for once? You're just as reckless and stubborn as Tian Yang. No, you're even worse than him. Elder Sun shouted at him, her fists clenched tightly. Elder Sun, I am serious. I want to go with you to the desolate continent. You have no idea how much I sacrificed to get the sect leader's approval, Yuan said with a serious expression on his face. Elder Sun sighed, whatever. You'll go by yourself if I refuse anyway, so I might as well bring you with me. You'll be a little safer that way. Promise me you'll not leave my side for as long as we're there. I promise, Yuan nodded. Come to the Immortal Sun Peak in 3 days. We'll leave then, she said a moment later. After leaving, Yuan went to meet up with the others to let them know about his absence. What? You can leave the sect? Ji Ran was shocked to learn this. Yes, but it'll cost you 10 million points. 10 million. That's straight up robbery, she merely exclaimed. Do you think we'll be able to acquire points outside the sect? Otherwise, I cannot justify spending so many points, Lan Yingying asked. I don't know, but we might be able to sell whatever we acquired outside to the stores for points once we get back to the sect, Yuan speculated. How long will you be gone for? Yingzi asked. I don't know, but I have 4 years to repay my debt, so I doubt I'll be out for too long. Yuan then told the others about paying for an audience with the sect leader and their true goal. Although it may seem expensive at first, I think it's worth it, as this may be the only way for us to get any answers. But these requirements, how long do you think it'll take one to complete them? She merely asked. Ji Ran responded with a solemn expression, acquiring 100 million points and becoming a core disciple will take a few decades, but to achieve level 9 in the Peerless Immortal Technique, I'm not sure if that's even possible. What level did you reach when you were the sect leader? And how long did it take? Yuan asked. I only reached the peak of the 7th level, which took me almost 3 million years to achieve. 3 million years. There's no way I'm willing to spend even a tenth of that much time here. Even if time passes slower in this world, it won't matter since we'd still need to spend that much time in here. She merely exclaimed, her motivation to continue this trial dropping significantly. 3 million years. There's no way I'm willing to spend even a tenth of that much time here. Even if time passes slower in this world, it won't matter since we'd still need to spend that much time in here. She merely exclaimed, her motivation to continue this trial dropping significantly. Looks like this trial is much more complicated and time-consuming than we all thought. What are you going to do now? Are you going to continue? Lan Yingying looked at Yuan. Honestly, I don't think I will complete this trial. I will probably give up sooner or later. Yuan said. He'd already thought about giving up before even his conversation with the sect leader was over. This trial was simply too time-consuming. Moreover, the reward for the trial wasn't enticing to Yuan, who already knew most of their techniques and secrets. When will you leave? I'll stay in here until you leave, she merely said. Probably after I return from this little trip, he said. Yuan then looked at Ji Ran and asked him, what about you? Will you stay here? Since time flows differently in here, you can stay here while we leave. Jiran couldn't give an immediate answer. He wanted to stay, but he had to follow Yuan. Yuan could guess what he was thinking and said, I don't mind if you stay. Here. Please give me some time to think about it, Jiran eventually said. Yuan nodded. 3 days later, Yuan met with Elder Sun at Immortal Sun Peak. Are you ready to leave? She asked him. Yes, I am ready. Elder Sun swiftly retrieved a flying treasure, and to Yuan's surprise, it took the form of a majestic white lion. Its pristine fur shimmered like polished jade, and roaring flames engulfed its powerful legs, crackling with an otherworldly brilliance. The beast radiated an aura of dominance and grace, exuding an ancient power that seemed to shake the very air around it. This was Yuan's first time seeing Elder Sun's flying treasure, and it looked even more realistic than the one Kulas had. That looks expensive, Yuan said out loud. What flying treasure isn't expensive? Yuan smiled and said, more than what a sect elder should be able to afford. Now that I think about it, I know nothing of your background, Elder Sun. Elder Sun sighed and said, stop being a busybody and get on it, or I will leave you behind. Elder Sun leapt onto the back of the majestic flying treasure, treating it as effortlessly as one would a common steed. Without hesitation, Yuan followed suit, landing just behind her. Before he could utter a single word, the white lion let out a low, rumbling growl, and in the blink of an eye, it ascended into the sky. Flames flickered from its legs as it propelled itself upward, piercing through the clouds with breathtaking speed. The world below blurred into insignificance, swallowed by the vast expanse of the heavens. Yuan gazed at the endless sky stretching before them and asked, how long do you think it'll take to reach the desolate continent? Despite their extreme speed, he felt only a gentle breeze brushing against his face. We should arrive in a week, she calmly replied. A week? That's too fast. Yuan cried inwardly. Since we have some time, why don't you tell me a little about yourself? When you asked me about my background, I realized that I also didn't know anything about you, Elder Sun said, being a busybody herself. Yuan smiled and said, I came from a place called Earth. Earth? I've never heard of this place before. It's a small and insignificant place, so I'm not surprised. Why did you join the Immortal Monastery? The same reason why most people do, to change my life. Elder Sun continued to question Yuan for the next several hours. Elder Sun, it's unfair that I'm the only one answering your questions. Let me ask you a few questions, as well, Yuan eventually said. Elder Sun narrowed her eyes, clearly hesitant to have her background questioned. Since he is my first disciple. A moment later, she nodded, all right, you can ask me a few questions. However, you can't ask anything too personal. Then I will ask you questions that you've already asked me. Yuan then asked, why did you join the Immortal Monastery? Elder Sun pondered for a bit before responding, I joined the Immortal Monastery to escape my family. While it's not like I am running away from home, I just wanted to be away from them. The atmosphere is too suffocating for my taste. I see, then how long have you been at the Immortal Monastery? Did you start as a disciple? Knowing she most likely wouldn't answer, Yuan avoided asking about Elder Sun's family situation. I think I've been working at the Immortal Monastery for about half a century now. I was already qualified as a sect elder, so I went straight for that position. Half a century? How old are you? You should never ask a young lady their age. Elder Sun sneered. Right, then where are you from? Elder Sun hesitated at this question, but she eventually answered, the Holy Continent. What? The Holy Continent? Yuan's eyes widened with surprise. During the primordial era, there existed a revered land known as the Holy Continent, and it possessed the highest density of spiritual energy in all of the divine heaven. The very air shimmered with chi, and the land pulsed with boundless vitality, making it the ultimate haven for cultivation. Such a paradise inevitably drew countless cultivators. However, entry was not a privilege granted to all. Only those from the most prestigious and powerful backgrounds, such as the 9 immortal clans, were permitted to set foot within its sacred grounds. To the rest of the world, the Holy Continent remained a distant dream, an untouchable utopia reserved for the chosen few. You must come from an extremely powerful family, Yuan mumbled. Don't tell me, you're from the 9 immortal clans. He swallowed nervously. Elder Sun raised an eyebrow and said, no, I am not from the 9 immortal clans. Do you have any grievances with them? It's subtle, but I can sense it in your tone. Something like that, I guess. This should be common sense, but you shouldn't mess with the 9 immortal clans. While they are influential, that's not the main reason. The 9 immortal clans are a vengeful bunch. Nothing good comes from messing with them. Yuan smiled and said, "Don't worry, my issue with the 9 immortal clans was resolved long ago." Yuan continued to ask Elder Sun questions. Since he had yet to fully regain Tian Yang's memories, he didn't have much information on her. A week passed in the blink of an eye, and they arrived at their destination, the desolate continent. "So, do you have any idea on how to find him?" Yuan asked Elder Sun. "No, and as much as I want to just wander around, the desolate continent is massive. It'd take months if we searched randomly." Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking. "How about we visit the southern stronghold first?" "Why? Did Tian Yang mention where he was going to the other disciples?" Elder Sun asked. "No, it's just a guess." Yuan shook his head. However, according to his memories, Tian Yang should currently be in the southern stronghold, accompanying Huang Xiaoli in her search for her missing family. "All right, now we just need to find the southern stronghold," Elder Sun nodded. Since this was her first time visiting the desolate continent, Elder Sun had no idea where anything was. Fortunately, she came prepared and brought a map with her. The southern stronghold should be in that direction. Yuan pointed in a certain direction. Elder Sun looked at him with raised eyebrows. "How do you know? Have you been here before?" Yuan shook his head. "No, but I have studied a lot about it. After all, I have always wanted to visit this place." "Is that so?" Elder Sun didn't question him further and controlled the flying treasure to head toward the southern stronghold. Sometime later, Elder Sun landed her flying treasure right outside the southern stronghold's gate, instantly attracting many gazes. After putting away the flying treasure, Elder Sun and Yuan entered the city to look for Tian Yang. A few hours into their search, Elder Sun suddenly spoke to Yuan using voice transmission. "We're being followed." Yuan smiled and calmly responded, "I'm not surprised. You were essentially asking to be robbed by showing off your flying treasure." "Showing off? I did no such thing. If it's out in the open, you're showing off. At least that's how things work within the desolate continent. Are you going to kill them? If they try anything funny?" A day quickly passed, but they were still unable to find Tian Yang despite Elder Sun using divine sense the entire time. "Looks like he isn't in this city," Elder Sun said. "Did they already go to the western stronghold?" Yuan wondered inwardly. "Let's try the western stronghold this time," he suggested a moment later. All right. Without lingering, the two of them quickly made their way to the western stronghold. Not wanting to waste money on the teleportation arrays, Elder Sun continued using her flying treasure. However, the moment they left the city, a decently sized group of over 100 individuals ambushed them, encircling them like a pack of hungry beasts. Their gazes burned with ill intent, their weapons gleaming under the light. The air grew heavy with murderous intent as one of them shouted, "If you want to live, hand over all of your treasures." Yuan silently looked at Elder Sun and wondered how she was going to react. What the hell is that? The group muttered in unison, their voices tinged with confusion and unease as they lifted their heads to stare at the hovering golden wheel. Before they could even begin to comprehend its powers, the wheel began spinning, its speed blurring its intricate engravings into streaks of light. Then, as if ignited by an unseen force, it erupted into golden flames, radiating an overwhelming pressure that made the air itself tremble. A moment later, without warning, a golden firestorm descended upon the bandits like the wrath of a celestial deity. Screams barely had time to form before they were silenced, their bodies consumed in an instant, reduced to nothing but ashes. Yuan and the other onlookers stared at Elder Sun with wide eyes. What a powerful treasure! Isn't she the one with the lion flying treasure? You must be incredibly stupid to try and rob someone as rich as that. The onlookers shook their heads at the bandits, mocking them in silence. Elder Sun didn't waste a second and retrieved her flying treasure after killing the bandits. "Let's go," she said as she stowed away the golden wheel. Yuan nodded and silently jumped onto the flying treasure. As they sped toward the western stronghold, Yuan thought to himself, that was an Empyrean-grade treasure. To possess such a powerful treasure in this era, her background might rival the 9 immortal clans. Even if the 9 immortal clans had Empyrean-grade treasures, they would only be reserved for the head of the family, so Elder Sun's position was akin to that. There were very few backgrounds during the primordial era that could rival the 9 immortal clans, and only one of them had the surname, Sun. Don't tell me she's from that family. Yuan swallowed nervously. A few hours later, they arrived at the western stronghold. This time, Elder Sun descended a few miles away from the city to avoid unnecessary trouble. Upon entering the city, they immediately began their search for Tianyang. In the middle of their search, Yuan suddenly noticed a specific individual. Elder Sun, can you give me a moment? There's something I must do, Yuan said to her. Will this thing take long? She asked. No, it'll be over before you know it. Hurry it up. Okay. Elder Sun then watched as Yuan withdrew his weapon and activated the Peerless Immortal technique. Wait, what are you? Without sparing Elder Sun a glance, Yuan moved with terrifying swiftness, his focus locked onto the individual who had caught his attention. This man was a spirit lord, an entire cultivation realm above Yuan. Yet, as if the vast gap in their cultivation was meaningless, Yuan struck without hesitation. In an instant, the spirit lord's body crumpled to the ground. Lifeless, his existence erased before he could even register his own demise. The suddenness of the kill rippled through the bustling street, drawing the attention of many onlookers. Yet, rather than panic or outrage, the crowd barely reacted. A few curious glances were cast in Yuan's direction, but indifference quickly settled in. After all, in the desolate continent, such incidents were nothing out of the ordinary. Murder in broad daylight was a daily occurrence, and the strong asserted their will without consequence. Life was cheap, and death was merely a spectacle to those who had long grown numb to its presence. Yet, despite the crowd's indifference, Elder Sun stood frozen, her mind racing. Shock and confusion flickered across her face as she tried to fathom why Yuan had killed that spirit lord, but nothing came to mind. After killing the spirit lord, Yuan returned to Elder Sun's side and acted as if he had done nothing wrong. Why did you kill him? She asked him with a deep frown, preparing to scold him if he didn't have a good reason for his actions. That man belonged to an infamous and ruthless group of bandits called the Golden Money Bandits, Yuan stated, his voice devoid of emotion, as if he had merely swatted away an insect. Their existence is akin to pests, so I exterminated him on the spot. His words were calm, yet the chilling finality in his tone sent a shiver through Elder Sun. Isn't that even more reckless? Elder Sun sighed, rubbing her temples as if trying to ease the headache Yuan had just given her. So, are you going to start killing every criminal you come across now? Her voice carried both exasperation and concern. Yes, but only those from the Golden Money Bandits, and only the ones I can kill, Yuan calmly said. What if someone you cannot handle comes after you? Then I will kindly ask for your assistance, Elder Sun, he smiled, leaving her speechless. Unbelievable, how can you even tell who belongs to what? It's not as if you memorized every face from their bandit group. I may not know every face, but I knew enough of them. Elder Sun could see it clearly, Yuan's hatred for the Golden Money Bandits ran deep. His actions weren't just driven by a sense of justice or convenience, there was something personal behind his decisiveness. Yet, despite her curiosity, she chose to hold her tongue. Some wounds were best left undisturbed. Pressing him for details might only stir painful memories or provoke emotions that could cloud his judgment. For now, she simply sighed and let the matter rest. If Yuan wished to speak of it, he would do so on his own terms. Since he's not killing random innocent people, I guess I can overlook this. We're in the desolate continent, anyway, Elder Sun thought to herself as they continued their search for Tianyang. However, even after looking through the entire western stronghold, Tianyang was nowhere to be found. Tianyang should definitely be in the western stronghold right now. If he's not here, then he might not physically exist in this world, Yuan thought to himself, slowly coming to terms with this reality. Alright, let's check the other cities now, Elder Sun said. Yuan silently nodded. What a waste of time, he sighed inwardly. However, just as they approached the city gates, Yuan's steps faltered. His gaze locked onto a group of individuals making their way into the city, and in that instant, his entire being froze. The faces of these individuals, he recognized them. Huang Xiaoli, he muttered as he stared at her beautiful face. However, what truly shocked Yuan wasn't just her presence, it was the individuals standing beside her. Tian Yang was nowhere to be seen. Instead, the ones accompanying Huang Shaoli were her own family, people who, according to history, should not be alive. Yuan's mind raced. He vividly recalled the fate that was supposed